All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go ahead and get started. I show it is that time. I see a lot of you are coming in now, so welcome if you're just joining us. We have a very special evening ahead of us here. For the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to have an incredible opportunity to hear directly from our very special guest, the man you've all been waiting for, Sheriff Mark Lamb. And before I get started, I just want to let you know we have increased the size of the room. So if there are people that you know need to hear from Sheriff Mark Lamb, or maybe they have some questions, then please share the link and we'll make sure to see if they can get on. But I know we have people joining us from all over the country. Of course, the great state of Arizona is well represented here this evening, but I see we've had people checking in from California to New York, down to Florida, and everywhere in between, because this is a very special opportunity to hear directly from the man himself, Sheriff Mark Lamb. And before I bring Sheriff Lamb on, I just want to let everybody know the agenda here for the next 45 minutes or so. We are going to go ahead and we're going to bring on Sheriff Lamb, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that you have been so grateful here in the registration to talk about. You know, in the registration, you saw that we asked, what are the three main concerns for you currently and moving forward with the election? And overwhelmingly, we have three issues that really stood out far and above everything. And so we're going to focus on those issues, but then we're going to open it up so you can ask questions to Sheriff Lamb. And how you're going to do that this evening is you're going to use the chat feature. Okay. So you can go ahead and start asking questions while we're talking, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions. If we don't get to you in advance, I apologize. We'll make sure to take note and get to you on the next one. But go ahead and start typing in your questions here, and we'll go ahead and get started. But let's kick it off here. I see we have the man himself. You know, I want to bring on and give a proper introduction. Many of you know Sheriff Mark Lamb that are here, but there's many of you who might just be hearing about him for the first time. Maybe some of your friends or family have told you, hey, you gotta hear who this Sheriff Mark Lamb is. But I want to tell you that Sheriff Mark Lamb, the time I've got to know him, is truly one of the best. He is as authentic as can be. And so what I love about Sheriff Lamb is what you see and what you're going to see tonight, or what you see on a social media, is who he is. And to me, in this day and age, especially when it comes into deciding who you want to vote for, that truly means a lot. Sheriff Lamb is a God-fearing patriot. He is one of the biggest patriots that you'll ever come across. He is a defender of God, a defender of family, not just his family, but all of our family. He's a defender of freedom and a defender of our Constitution. And one of the quotes that comes to my mind when thinking of Sheriff Mark Lamb is, one of the best predictors of future performance is past. And what I love about Sheriff Lamb is he has a track record. He's not just telling you what he would like to do or what he thinks he can do, but Sheriff Mark Lamb has a proven track record over the last couple of decades of serving the community and doing everything that he says that he wants to do on a bigger scale in the U.S. Senate. So it is an honor to have Sheriff Mark Lamb, an experienced leader, with us here tonight. He is the Sheriff of Pinal County, a father, husband, grandfather, and Arizona Republican candidate for U.S. Senator. Sheriff Lamb, thanks for joining us here.
Dallas, thank you, brother. I appreciate the intro, and thank you, everybody who's logged on here tonight. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Friday. You could probably be out hanging out with friends, going to dinner, doing something. So we appreciate you being here with us tonight. It's an honor to be here, Dallas, and thank you guys so much for putting this together. I appreciated the intro because I have always tried to be an authentic person who just is a patriot, who loves God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And that's really what's driven me in my career. I got into law enforcement a little bit late in life. I was like 33 years old when I did a ride-along, and I did one ride-along. And I went out there. We had a call for a dad who had found a 20-year-old with his 14-year-old daughter. And this, my neighbor talked me into doing this ride-along because I was a business owner, minding my own business, never thought about being a cop. I get this phone call, or I get this request to go on the ride along. So I go with my neighbor on it. We get this call for service. Dad finds this 20-year-old with his 14-year-old daughter. We go out there. They had gotten in a scuffle and the guy ran out the back. And so we show up and it's on the reservation. So behind the house, ton of desert. And I see this old abandoned travel trailer. And so I walk towards it. I'm armed with a flashlight and courage. That's all I had at the time. No vest, no gun, no nothing. I walk up and I look in through the window and I see amongst all this trash and debris, what I think is a quarter size of skin. And so I tell these guys, I'm like, hey, I think this guy's in here. And so they go in there. Sure enough, they pull the clothes in the trash back. That guy's in there. They grab him, they rough him up, drag him out, tase him, put him in cuffs. I went home that morning. I woke my wife up and I said, honey, I'm going to be a cop.
Wow.
6 months later, I was in the academy, 34 years old, and I have loved this profession ever since. And I believe that this is the backbone of America. The founding fathers weren't wrong when they wrote the Constitution. The first charge of the Constitution wasn't in it wasn't in the articles. It wasn't in the Bill of Rights. It was actually found in the preamble to the Constitution when the founding fathers said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. They knew how important justice would be. And I felt that as I got into this profession. I got into the mid 2000s and I was a little bit concerned with where we were going as a country. I saw under the Obama administration, they were really undermining the rule of law. And they were really taken away from what I thought was the strength of America, that rule of law, turning the citizens on police. And we started seeing more cell phones pop up with video, and everything was kind of being pushed off onto the police. And so instead of being a guy who complains about it, I thought, you know what can I do to make a change? I'll run for sheriff. So I decided to run for sheriff. And so made that decision in 2011. And in 2016, I actually won my election right along the same night as Donald Trump won his the first time, and took office in 2017. And I've loved every bit of it ever since. And now I'm to another point. So people say, well, if you love it so much, why not stay as sheriff? And I have a ton of people, and I love it because they say, Sheriff, we don't want you to go. We want you to stay as sheriff. And I can't tell you how much that means to me. But I also know that there are problems that we cannot fix on a county level. There are things that we cannot fix here in Arizona. These things must be tackled and fixed at a national level. I oftentimes use this as an example that I can protect my herd from the wolves. But at some point, if somebody doesn't go out and hunt those wolves, they're going to multiply and replenish. And eventually, even the best of sheriffs is not going to be able to keep those wolves from the herd. And so we need somebody that's going to go to DC and fix these problems that are national federal issues for the most part, and restore our states' rights, yank the chain back on the federal government. These are the things that I believe in and want to do when I get to Washington, D.C. Day one, we've got to start on the border. The border is the number one issue, no matter where you go. It's probably your number one issue tonight, Dallas, amongst all the people that are logging in. But the border is the number one issue, and it actually is intertwined with national security. The greatest threat we are facing right now as Americans is what is happening at the southern border, with the people coming in from all over the world. This has changed over the last 3 years. Very different than what we saw for decades along the border. This has changed in the way that we're now seeing people coming from not just Mexico or Guatemala, but they're coming from all over the world. We're seeing people from Sudan, Chad, the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. We're seeing them coming from Iran, the Middle East, Syria, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Turkey. They're coming from Russia, Ukraine. They're coming from China. 37,000 Chinese nationals last year. We're already over 30,000 Chinese nationals this year. And that problem is not getting any better. And if you don't know, you just can't get on a bus or a plane and leave a communist country. That's not the way it works. It's not like we have it here in America. You got to have permission to leave. And so I'm very concerned with these military age men predominantly that are coming in. Not to mention the other threat is the leading cause of death amongst Americans between the ages of 18 and 45 is fentanyl poisoning. Fentanyl poisoning is killing about 100,000 Americans a year. There is nothing no army has ever had success killing Americans like fentanyl poisoning has. And we know that the precursors come from China. They put it into the hands of the cartels, and then they bring it into America and kill American lives. And if you don't believe us, go down to your main cities, right into the downtowns, go to Philadelphia, go to some of these other major cities and look at the disastrous consequences of our open border. So we must fix our open border. I look forward to being part of that. I look forward to helping President Trump close the southern border and get that under control, because we cannot mop the bathroom floor until we turn off the tub water. So that's got to be the first issue we deal with. We've got an economy problem in this country. Our economy's rough. Our government is overspending as if the economy was going good. They are spending way beyond our interest on what we owe now, and the debt we owe is more than what we even bring in anymore. And you have a government that refuses to make any cuts. We need people that have managed a large budget like I have. While I don't manage trillions, I manage a budget of over $60 million. I have 600 employees. And you know what? We balance that budget and we stay within that budget every year. And so can they. And they need people that understand that that's the responsibility of elected officials, to be responsible with people's tax dollars. And look, we're collecting too many tax dollars as it is. We've got to work on reducing that. And the only way we do reduce that is by reducing the size of government. And then obviously crime is a big issue. That's probably one of your things on the list of top issues. For me, it was border, government overreach, and the economy. And then crime is right there too. We're seeing crime across this country. We need proven conservative fighters and lawmen that understand the balance of the law, that understand that law is not to be used as lawfare, like what we're seeing with this administration going after their political rival in Donald Trump and so many other people across this country. And I'm telling you, it's not just a political talking point. We see it in law enforcement, how this federal government and so many different places have been weaponized against the American people, and it has to stop. And the only way we stop it is by getting good, solid, proven conservative fighters in office. And then we just need people that are going to restore this country to its greatness. We don't need the Department of Education on a federal level. That's a state issue. We've got to get our elections under control. We've got to make sure that the federal government's not impeding on our state elections. Constitution is very, very direct, and Article 1, Section 4 says this is a state issue, the election clause. And as a federal senator, my job will be to make sure that the federal government stays out of that. We've got so much work to do, and that is why I'm running. So when people say, why are you running? Because you know what? I can't sit by and do nothing. There's an old Danish saying that says, whoever has the ability has the responsibility. And we feel the responsibility in this household, my wife and I. This is a team effort, our family. We have accepted that we must do something. There's some level of sacrifice to preserve the freedom that so many other great men and women have sacrificed to give us. And we've got to get people back in there that have the right experience, that are proven conservative fighters, that are going to stand against this machine that is this government, and that's going to work hard to restore God and the Constitution to this country. And that's why I'm running. And that's the expertise that I think I bring to the table. And we've got to have somebody in DC. Now, if you think, well, I don't live in Arizona, let me tell you why this affects you. The senator in Arizona is just as it impacts people in Alabama and in Arkansas and all the way in New York, just as much as it impacts people here in Arizona, because the two senators we send back from each state, they vote on bills that affect all of us in every state. So it doesn't just affect Arizona. The senator in Arizona will affect your state no matter where you live in one of these 50 states. It will affect you. So you have a vested interest to make sure that we get good, constitutionally freedom-loving, God-fearing, family-oriented people in office that are going to defend the things that this country was built on.
Well, I want to say thank you for sharing that. And, for many of the people that are just hearing from you directly for the first time, I think that's very helpful because, I mean, listen, I know my wife and my family and my kids, we have 6 kids. We're grateful for you and your wife, of course, for being there. But we're grateful for you because you're going out there. You are sacrificing yourself like you've done for the community here in your county, like you said. But now you're going to do things that you can't do on the county level. That was very important. And so I know on behalf of myself and my family, we're very thankful and grateful for you to be out there defending us. But I know, Sheriff, I know you're a big family guy. And so there are people here who are just learning more about you for the first time. And you made a good point. It doesn't matter. Arizona, they can vote for you in Arizona. But outside, you need Sheriff Mark Lamb, because I can promise you there's probably not a fighter running in your race that will fight for you, even if you're in Mississippi or Florida or New York, like Sheriff Lamb will in DC. But let's back up a little bit just so people can really get to know you somewhat and just a little bit more about your background. You're a big family guy. Tell us a little bit more about your family and how that really affects your decisions and what you're doing moving forward.
Well, look, first of all, I was raised by great parents who instilled a love of country and a love of history and what it took to get the freedoms that we have. And I've been very grateful for that. And I've been married to my wife now for, this is 30 years in September.
Congratulations.
We're hoping that we get a chance to celebrate it. If not, we'll celebrate it after the election. But we're hitting 30 years. We've got 5 kids, 4 boys and 1 girl. We've got 3 grandkids and 2 more on the way. And talking about family and some of the reasons why we're running, I'll share two personal stories about our children. One of our children, our middle son, he got a little off the beaten path and he struggled with some drug addiction, and we struggled with it for many years. We dealt with that. Our son going through that, and it was not easy. He was dabbling in a lot of different drugs. Ultimately, we found out he was using fentanyl, which is why I fight so hard to keep the fentanyl out of the hands of not just my loved ones, but everybody's loved ones in this country. I just can't stand to see families suffer. I can't stand to see the lives lost to fentanyl poisonings. But my son, we were struggling with him, and we left one day, told him he can't drive our cars. We said this was a thing that we didn't allow him to do. Unfortunately, he got one of our cars, and I got a phone call maybe 30, 40 minutes later saying, "Dad, I just hit a guy on a bike." And so we, first of all, your world just shrinks down into a tunnel vision. And I said, "What?" And he said, "I just hit a guy on a bike." And so luckily we weren't far away. We drove over, we pull up, we see the car. This is in my county, by the way, not far from our house. I see my son standing there. I check on him. I walk over, I check on the guy that he hit with the bike, or that was on a bike. I'm praying that the guy does not pass away and that the guy will be okay. One of the hardest things I've done, which is, I think this is one of the important things that we need in this country, is I had somebody ask me a while back, what does it mean to have honor? And a lot of people think, oh, honor is, putting the shopping cart back when nobody's looking. Well, that's integrity. Honor is doing what is right, no matter the consequence. No matter how difficult the consequence is, that's what honor is. And so I walked back over to my son and I looked at my son in the face and I said, "I'm sorry, but I have to leave you here. If I stay here, they're going to say that I influenced this case in some way." And one of the hardest things I did was walk away from my son. He was surrounded by 8 deputies. I walked, my wife and we got in the car and we drove off, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But, there was consequences to his decisions, and we believe in that as a family. And so ultimately, my son was charged with ag assault with a deadly weapon. Thankfully, the man survived. And my son ended up spending 6 months in my jail. Wow. But at that point, he had been clean and he got clean. And this is the other half of the story. When I thought about running for Senate, I wasn't sure if I'd do it. And when my son got out of jail, I went to him, and he had been doing really good. He had an 11-month-old daughter. He's a fiance. And I said to my son, I said, "Look, I'm thinking about running for Senate. But if I do that, they're going to drag all that stuff with him back into the limelight," which they were merciless with him. And they were merciless with me and my family. So I went back to my son. I talked to him about it. I think ultimately I probably would not have run for office if the next thing I'm going to tell you about didn't happen. A few months later, in December of 2022, December 16th, my 22-year-old son left for work. In the afternoon, his fiance and my 11-month-old granddaughter went to pick him up from work. They didn't come back. My wife was wrapping presents. I'd been out at a dinner. I come home. It's about 8:30 at night. We get a knock on the door, and it was the sheriff from the neighboring county, 2 of my deputies, or my chiefs, and 2 guys from Gilbert PD. And one of my chiefs has known my kids since they were little kids. And all he could say, you could tell he was shaken up, and he just looked at me and said, "Cooper and the baby are dead." In the blink of an eyelash, I lost my 22-year-old son, my 11-month-old granddaughter, and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law to a 21-year-old guy who was driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs, DUI, hit their car at 70 miles per hour, and killed all three. And we didn't feel like doing anything. I wasn't interested in running for sheriff. I wasn't interested in running for Senate. I wasn't interested in getting out of bed. And we kind of just pushed our way through for the next few weeks. And the first real spark I felt was somebody asking me, and I don't remember what it was, but it had to do with the Senate. And that was the first spark I'd felt in weeks. And my wife and I knew at that point, this is exactly what we were supposed to do. Because there is no guarantee for tomorrow. And the only thing we take with us in this life is what we do. And so what we want to be doing is we want to fight for freedom. We want to fight against the things that affect people's families. We want to defend American values. We want to defend God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And we're willing to make those sacrifices. So while I appreciate, Dallas, your kind words and in saying that, you're welcome. But at the same time, we feel it's our duty to do something. There's, like I said, what kind of man am I if I don't do anything about it? If I stand on the corner and wait for the building to burn to the ground, or if I stand there and wait for somebody else to run into the building, that's not who I am. And so we saw an opportunity to do something, and so we're doing it. And what has given us the purpose to drive through the awfulness that is running a campaign and being out on the grind every day is the experience with losing our children. Honestly, that has given us a drive that is unquenchable. We just continue to push forward, and we have our eyes on the prize and the finish line. And regardless of the outcome, we are in this because we feel we need to be in this.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Sheriff. I don't know how you do it. That story. I mean, I've heard it. I heard it once before, and I'll just be honest. I still don't know how you do it, and it truly is, to me, inspiration from God, and of course your family that has to do that, and so, that's incredible. And I'll just say that this is, to me, you don't have to do this, right? You've had a successful career in law enforcement. You guys have done incredible things in Pinal County. You don't have to take this step and put yourself out there as Senate. And what I love is that you're passionate and you're determined to do it, and you're going to make it happen. Let me ask you this, Sheriff Lamb. You've had a lot of success in Pinal County, and you've made a name for yourself nationally and even internationally because of the things you've done in Pinal County. And that's why I believe there's so many people from law enforcement that support you from all over the country. But what are some of your most proud accomplishments as your time, as your time as sheriff in Pinal County?
Well, this is going to sound weird because I've enjoyed every bit of it. We were on Live PD. We did a show called 60 Days In, which ultimately came out during COVID. It had already come out, and then it came out on Netflix during COVID. So while everybody's home, other than Pinal County, which, by the way, we didn't do the lockdowns, we didn't do the mask mandates, we didn't do the vaccines. We weren't buying into all that. So that's why you need a proven conservative fighter. But while people were home, that show came out. But one thing that I've always, because I came from a business background, what I realized is that law enforcement wasn't doing a good job of setting the narrative out there. They weren't connecting with the community. And so with the rise of social media, what we did is we really leaned into it. We leaned into the ability to show people in all its truthfulness, everything that we are doing here at the sheriff's office. And what that did is that not only did it give us recognition throughout the country, but it also gave us recognition throughout our profession. And it also gave us really gave us a good community connection. I always say you've got to deposit into the bank account of trust with your community every day, multiple times a day, because there will be withdrawals. And when those withdrawals come, whether it's something bad on video or you have to take the life of somebody, those are heavy withdrawals. And if you don't have anything in your bank account of trust, you're going to struggle to do it. And one thing we understood was that. But I've got to give all the credit of the work that we've done to the men and women that put on the badge, my agency. I just get to take the credit for the great work that they do. So they're the ones that really do the work. I just happen to be the guy that gets to go out and be the face of the agency and set the vision for the agency. And a lot of times people will say, well, Sheriff, what are you going to be able to do? You're only one of 100 senators in the Senate. And I said, well, first of all, I'm only one of 3,100, nearly 3,100 sheriffs in this country. Yet I think we've done a pretty good job of branding the Pinal County Sheriff's Office nationwide. And also, if you go with Facebook followers, YouTube followers, the #1 agency for law enforcement in the country is the FBI. Number 2 was NYPD until we passed them up several months ago. And we are now the #2 agency in the country. So if you don't think there's something that I won't be able to do in DC, one of 100, I'll take those odds any day of the week, because I think that what we're going to be able to do, we're going to take that same mindset of hard work and putting it out there and being honest with the people and making sure that they understand what's going on in Washington, D.C., instead of a good old boys club where the doors closed to all the citizens in this country and only open to the people in the club. That's got to change. And I think I'm a perfect person for making that change, because we need that same transparency that has taken our agency to a national recognition, but also doing it in another way. And I got to credit Frank too. Fridays with Frank. Half the people on here probably aren't watching it because they're like, I want to see what Fridays with Frank's bosses has to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate you sharing that. And we have a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to get to those in just a couple minutes. And ladies and gentlemen, as you're typing the questions, I know some of them have actually already been answered as we've gone through the first part of the Q&A here with me and Sheriff Lamb. But go ahead, and if we don't get to your question for whatever reason, we're going to try to knock through them as quick as possible. But make sure to go to the website, sign up for email updates, sherifflamb.com, sign up for email updates, and you can ask your questions there. You can follow social media. All the social media links are there, and we're going to get you out an email after this, so you'll have all of that in front of you. But, you know, one of the things
Can I say one thing? Because I didn't answer your last question. I started to say these are the things that you would think I was proud of, but the most things that I'm most proud of is my youth redirection program, where we've had over 200 kids come through that program. We've had less than 5 kids reoffend. This was basically an alternative to putting them in the system, to putting them through diversion. And instead of it being a punitive course, what we did was we put them through 4 classes: goal setting and planning, digital media, social media, sexting, the dangers of it. We talked about drugs and alcohol, and then we would do a career night. And then we would make them do 8 hours of community service, which was always horse therapy. So they would go shovel some crap with the horses, and then they got to take care of the horses and ride them and do that kind of stuff. And those programs have been probably some of what I've been most proud of. Not to mention in the jail, we've done our veterans program, which was called Humvee, the housing unit for military veterans. And we saw a tremendous success rate of reducing recidivism, dang near down to nothing amongst our veterans. We do tattoo removal programs for the women who come through the program. We did it with men, but we started really focusing on women because they get trafficked, and we were able to take them and take the tattoos that their pimps might have put on them. We've also now started really robust reentry program, thanks to what Regina Cobb started it. And she's no longer in the legislature, but she really started it, got the money flowing in, and we're building a reentry facility. The whole goal is to start to establish their dignity and respect as soon as they leave off the jail. We have seen about 75%. We're still working those numbers, but it's at least 70% to 75% of the people that are going into these programs right now are not getting in trouble again. They're not reoffending. They're not violating probation. They're not committing other crimes. So I would say that the things that I'm most proud about is the effect and the change that we've seen in people whose lives weren't necessarily on the right track. And we were delivered a product, and our job was to deliver a better product back to them than what we got. And so when you ask me what those things are that I'm most proud of, those are the things I'm most proud of over my last 8 years as sheriff.
And imagine if we can do even a fraction of that on a national level, how much better this country would be. And so, and I think one of the most impressive points out of all that, other than the impact you've made on everybody in Pinal County, is you did it all under budget. You know, that to me is incredibly impressive, especially with where we're at as a country as a whole, and the massive spending that's causing the inflation. So doing it under budget is phenomenal. If you're just joining us, we're here with Arizona U.S. Senate candidate, a Republican candidate, Sheriff Mark Lamb, and we're going to go right into Q&A, Mark, if you're okay with that. But I just want to point out here, my final question is, you know, there's a primary coming up here very, very soon. And the Republican side of things, there's really two choices. You've been running here for quite some time. I believe it's last April. You had another individual jump into the race here pretty late after you've been involved. But just for everybody, and then we're going to get right into the questions. Why, if people are just learning about you or just still undecided, which we see many people are, why should somebody vote for Sheriff Mark Lamb in the primary over former newscaster Kari Lake?
Well, look, and first and foremost, I appreciate anybody's passion and willingness to get into the arena. This is not an easy thing to do, is get into politics. It's a tough thing. They always say, you want to know what you did wrong in life, run for office, you'll find out. But what I've learned is I don't run against anybody. I run for the position. And what that allows me to do is really be me and focus on what I believe in and the experience that I bring to the table and why I think that is the best suited for the job. If you were to hire somebody for your company, or well, first of all, if you were to hire anybody for your company, you're not going to hire somebody that doesn't really have any experience. You're going to hire the person that has decades of experience in these issues, that can hit the ground running and knows what needs to be done. Or, you know, let's say if you had a call for service and a thief was in your house, I think you probably would rather I send a cop that's been doing it for 20 years than somebody who just really has never even gone through the academy. I mean, it boils down to experience. This is a race about experience. We cannot take the risk to lose. We cannot. The stakes are too high. Not only does the Senate probably hang on Arizona, the presidency could potentially hang on Arizona and our ability to find the right person. And when you look at poll after poll, it shows that I have the best chance of winning in the general election, that we can take this state back. We have a positive favorability with Republicans, Democrats, and independents, the whole board of them. We've got a positive favorability rating with them. We have got to get somebody that's going to be able to transcend the politics and just get people who are Americans, who they're fed up with all of it, and they just want their country back, and they want people that are going to represent them. And I think that is what I bring to the table. You know, if your house was on fire, or there was thieves in your house, or there was a domestic situation, who are you going to call? You're going to call a politician? No, you're going to call your local sheriff.
Absolutely not.
Because we're trained and experienced in restoring balance and order to chaos. It's what we do every day. You call us, and within minutes, we're expected to show up and start to restore the balance and order to whatever chaos is going on. Well, there's chaos in Washington, D.C. And I think we need more cowboy hats and belt buckles and boots to get some restoration back at that place. Because you know what doesn't matter to us when we go out and do our job? What political party you are, what race you are, what religion you are, what skin color you are, what your social ideologies are. None of that matters. What matters is restoring that balance and order to whatever is going on. And I think that's some of the stuff that makes me suited. And I am the only proven conservative leader and fighter in this race. And that's what we need now more than ever. There's no more runway. We don't have any more time. We've got to hit the ground running, and we need that qualified, proven conservative fighter.
Well, I know that you've always been a proven conservative fighter. Your track record speaks for itself, and I couldn't agree more that experience matters. It really does, especially with the chaos. You mentioned chaos in DC. We have chaos all across the country, and it's time to put the right people who have been there, done that, who have fought through fire. And so I agree. And I will point out that just looking at the facts, this is just the facts, whether people like it or not. If we want a Republican senator to come out of Arizona. Sheriff Mark Lamb is the only individual who can do that. And so I'm grateful to have you on. And so the questions are pouring in. I know people are anxious, Sheriff Lamb. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it if you're ready. Yep, we'll go as fast as we can here. So the first question is, I like this one. This one is from Paige, and her question is, how can we help you?
Oh, I love it already. What's her name?
Paige.
Paige, thank you so much. Please go to sherifflamb.com or sherifflambforsenate.com. Right now you can donate, but something more you can do, that if you don't have any money to donate, even if you do, go tell 10 of your friends and ask them to tell their friends that we're in this race and that the experience that we bring to the table. You can also volunteer on our website. You can help get signs out. You can help put signs in. There's a lot that we can do. This next 6 weeks, we've really got to get the word out, and you can post on social media. Take the things we post it on social media, or get with Dallas and Eric. They're really good about getting you put in the right direction for whatever expertise or skill set you bring. We'll find a way to use you as a volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I mean, obviously, if you're in Arizona, you got to vote, right? And vote in the primary. Don't sit the primary out. Make sure everybody you know is voting. Independents in Arizona can actually vote in the Republican primary, but they need to go ahead and request the ballot, and we can get you that information. And then go to your website and sign up, and there'll be a lot of great information, emails, social media links, and of course, how you can join the volunteer posse, as Sheriff Lamb talked about. You can go out there and help, but you can also do things, as Sheriff Lamb mentioned, from your phone or from social media by just sharing the word. Of course, donations. I know this is your least favorite part, Sheriff Lamb, but it does take money. You know, all the signs that are all over the country. And I saw a recent study that signs are worth 6 to 10 voters. They influence 6 to 10 voters. So signs need to be out there. They cost money. So any contributions are very helpful in sharing the word and spreading the message if you like Sheriff Mark Lamb. Okay, next question is about, of course, the border. We have many questions about the border, so we'll jump in, and this might answer some of the others. Sheriff Lamb, what is your plan for the border and immigration? What have you done in Pinal County? I know you answered some of this, but maybe expand on that. That question is from Caden.
Look, Caden, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is go back to the Trump era policies. Those work. To remain in Mexico, continue to build the wall, hold people accountable. We have something called Title 8. You know, this administration continues to say that they need a new bill or they need more money from you, the taxpayer, to fix this problem. That's just not true. And Joe Biden proved it, his own point last week when he tried to do an executive order. He took the executive orders that President Trump had in place that were working, and he undid them all, and he bragged about it. And that same authority under Section Immigration and Naturalization 212F gives him the authority to be able to make those decisions and fix our border. But you've got to take the handcuffs off of Border Patrol, let them do their job, get the Remain in Mexico program. We can't let people come in and give them a court date for 5-6 years from now for asylum. And the only way we're going to ever stop the drugs is we've got to do a hard border security stop on these things. There's a balance to letting the flow of the trucks that come in with produce and all that stuff that keep our economy going. We got a ton of stuff in Yuma where they need the labor. Those things are in place. We got to make sure that all this other nonsense doesn't hamper that, because that's what happens when you have open border. It affects all of the normal trade that we should have that makes our country go around. We got to stop the illegal stuff, and we got to stop the fake asylum claims. So getting back to the Trump era policies, finishing building the wall, taking the handcuffs off of Border Patrol, enforcing Title 8, getting the Remain in Mexico program. These are some of the quick fixes that we have. And then, then once we get in there, we've got to start fixing immigration. That's another piece that needs to be fixed on a Senate and a congressional level.
Love it. Thank you for that. And thank you for that question. Next one is a fun one. This is from Jonathan. Can you come up to Yavapai County and let us show you how we support you? Prescott Valley area.
Jonathan, I'm going to answer that just in a second, because I realized on that last question, what have we done in Pinal County? We work with Border Patrol every day. We take our helicopter out. We go out. I have an anti-smuggling unit. and my canines are completely dedicated to trafficking on the I-10, whether it's trafficking of humans, drugs. Just last week, we popped a load, had 80 pounds of fentanyl in the back. That's 360,000 pills. We also had 9 pounds of cocaine in there. And we're getting these every week. We're getting loads of people every day. We're doing what we can within my authority as a sheriff, especially because I'm not right on the border. I'm one county off, but everybody comes through the border, has to come through Pinal County to get to Phoenix. So I'm working hard every day with Border Patrol, and my guys are doing their own work to try to stop this. Jonathan, Prescott, yeah, we love Yavapai County. Awesome. We've probably spent as much, if not more time in Yavapai County than anywhere else. We love it there. We're going to be at the rodeo and the parade on July 6th. So please come out, see us at the parade. You can catch me at the rodeo. We're going to be up in Yavapai all day long. But Yavapai, if you don't know, if you're not from Arizona, Mojave County, we've got some really red, great counties that believe in the same things that we believe in here on this call. And we've just thoroughly enjoyed the time we've spent in Yavapai, and we always look forward to any opportunity. But the next one, Jonathan, is probably going to be, I think we have Hasayampa. We have something else as before, but the big one will be the rodeo and the parade in Prescott on July 6th.
Perfect. And once again, go to the website, sherifflam.com, and many of the events, there's so many. I know you're traveling from corner to corner, doing many events a day, in addition to still holding down your duties as Pinal County Sheriff. But Jonathan, you can follow, make sure to sign up for email updates so you can see where Sheriff Lamb's going to be. Okay, we have a fun one here. This is one that I've seen many variations of come in. This one's from Devin. He says, there's a lot of concern about election integrity in Arizona. Can you please share what you did in Pinal County to ensure fair elections, and why former newscaster Kari Lake is saying you said there was no fraud in elections? I know a lot of people want to hear this.
Yeah, I get this question a lot. First of all, it's just not true. It's not true that I don't believe there's fraud. Where that comes from is I testified in Congress. We were testifying on the Homeland Security Committee about the border issues because of this administration's failure to secure it. One of the congressmen, Congressman Goldman, he got up and he said, is there fraud in the election? I said, yes, every election. Oh, there is? And I said, yes. Well, what do you mean? Well, people voting for dead people voting too many, dropping off too many ballots, ballot harvesting. So I started listing all these. He said, okay, that's true. Do you have evidence of large-scale material fraud? I do not. I have zero evidence of large-scale material fraud in my county. The one thing I wished I would have quantified it with in Congress was in Pinal County. I'm only responsible for what happens in Pinal County. I don't know what goes on in the other counties. But here's what I did after the 2020 election, because I did not believe that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. But I've often said I'm not in the business of feelings or thoughts in my profession. I have to find evidence and proof. In my world, I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So I set off to do that. I worked with True the Vote. I worked with them for months. I had something called Protect America Now. We did a spinoff into protectamerica.vote, where I actually was working with them, trying to get them to give me information for Pinal County. We helped them raise money for educational stuff on what you can and cannot do for elections. Not only that, I put cameras on every one of my ballot boxes. And we monitored those with not just our deputies, but we also opened it up for our citizens. And we had citizens monitoring our ballot boxes for 3 weeks for the full time they were out there, 24/7. We had somebody in that little room monitoring it. And then we as detectives monitored it. We also looked at the legality of the ballot counting machines. We looked at a whole bunch of other concerns that were brought to me. I would have loved to have been that guy that had a ton of fraud that I could have went after somebody and said, these guys did this. But I live in the world of what you can prove in court. And unfortunately, I couldn't put enough evidence together to show beyond a reasonable doubt that we had mass election fraud, or that there was evidence of large scale material fraud. That was the question. So people are being misled when they're being told that I didn't do anything or that I didn't believe in the fraud. But let me tell you something further. This is important because as Republicans, we oftentimes want to just go to the easy route and say, we got cheated. While there is fraud, I want to tell you where a lot of that last election went. I don't know the numbers for 2020, but 2022, we had 60,000 Republican ballots where nobody voted for governor or senator. We had 74,000 ballots where people wrote things like Goofy, Donald Duck, and Mickey Mouse. We had 152,000 ballots where people voted for legitimate write-in candidates. We only had 54% of Republicans return their early ballots. It went up to 61% on the day of the election. Here's the reality that most of us don't want to hear. We're not going to win elections if those are the numbers we're putting up. If you're not making your vote count, or you're abstaining, or you're putting in things like Goofy and Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse, we're going to struggle to win elections. Just so you can show you that we can win, Kimberly Yee, she ran for treasurer. She won by 300,000 votes. The issues of the wrong size paper in Maricopa County, that also affected Kimberly Yee. The issue of the machines not working the day of the election, that also affected Kimberly Yee, but she still won by 300,000 votes. So while there is a lot of problems with our elections, and I think we have a whole ton of work to do as a state, I'm running for the US Senate. As a senator, my job is to keep the federal government out of our elections. As a state, we've got a lot of work, and I support any measure that will solidify our elections, that where people can trust them, because we definitely need to tighten it up, and we've got to reduce any type of fraud out there, and we've got a lot of work to do that. But just so you know, we can win these elections. The votes are there. And we have to accept some responsibility and get out and vote and make sure that we have candidates that we want to vote for and that we can get into office. And that's the reality of it. Whatever happened, this is like trying to win an argument with your spouse from 4 years ago. You may be right, but it ain't going to help today. We got to focus on how do we fix it now, and let's win, and let's get it fixed, and let's move forward.
Right. And we have to win this election. There's no doubt about it. You know, the last election, this is the biggest election of our lifetime. Absolutely not. It is 2024 from the top all the way down to the local races. This is our country that we are voting for. And that's why it's so important for you to make the right decision. And this is why I'm grateful for Sheriff Lamb to come on so you can really hear from him directly. The questions are great. Keep them coming. We're going to get to the best we can. But what I want to say is, you know, we expect misinformation, or as President Trump says, fake news from the left. It is disappointing to see that coming from the right. But interestingly enough, I've seen that hearing that you were that's kind of been misrepresented, and that same congressman after was jumping on you and accusing you of being one of the people who said there was issues in the last election. And so you can make anybody sound like they said anything when you take certain clips, and it's unfortunate, but you know, I'm grateful for the people that are asking this question, because you do need to not just believe everything you see here, even if it's by people that you would think would tell the truth. So what you said about winning the election, it's the candidates, right? There are Republican candidates who did win, and they won big. We just need to make sure we have better candidates who can make sure that they appeal to the Republicans and even the massive independents, especially in the state of Arizona. So appreciate you answering that.
You don't have to compromise to do that, Dallas. You don't have to compromise with your conservative values. You have to be somebody who has the temperament that people know, okay, look, I may not agree with the guy, but I like his temperament. I feel like he's gonna represent me, and at least I know where he always is. If I tell you what I believe in, you can take that to the bank and you will know that's what I believe in. And so I think that's what people, and especially in Arizona where it's a third, you really need independence to say, look, I may not agree with everything he says, but the guy says what he means, and he's authentic, and I want that guy.
Well, speaking of that, here's a question that's semi-related. So Dawn asked, what are your thoughts on there not being a Republican debate for the primary? There's a few of these questions. But what are your thoughts on that for the voters? Because there are people that are, a huge amount of people that are undecided because they genuinely, maybe they like both candidates. Maybe they're not familiar. What are your thoughts on there not being a debate?
Look, many of the things that we believe in are the same. So a debate would be a lot of the same ideas and same, values. But in the end, I think a debate is needed. I think that we should be having an opportunity, whether it's a debate or just an opportunity to get to see both candidates in front of you and talk about the experience, which I think is a vast difference in experience. I think that's really what would allow me to shine and show you that I've been doing this job for a while. I've been managing a budget. I've been protecting the border, real boots on the ground. I understand it at a different level. I'll be the most knowledgeable senator in the Senate when we go back to the Senate as relates to the border, and probably crime for that matter too. So there's a lot of things that I think that would give me, I would love the opportunity to really highlight that. I've accepted every opportunity to debate that I could. And whether it's a forum or debate, and in the end, look, I can't get locked into that. What I have to do is I have to focus on making sure that I get out to the people, as many as I can. But I think it's an important part, and I'm sad we haven't done it. I wish we would, but I'm not sad, but I'm disappointed that we didn't get that done.
Gotcha. Michelle wanted to know, I know there is a max donation amount, but what I'm unclear of is it for the household, or how can both me and my husband donate?
Dang, these are great questions. Thank you, Michelle. I'll tell you, you can donate $6,600 per person or $13,200 per household. So that's your husband, you and your spouse. That's what you can donate. There's children, I think, if they've got the means, they can do it too. But typically a husband and a wife, $13,200. What that is that's $3,300 for the primary and $3,300 for the general. Should you not make it, you're going to get a check back for the other part for the general. That gets confusing. Let's just put it at $6,600 per person.
Perfect. And once again, the money isn't for Sheriff Lamb to go have date nights. The money is going to help get the word out. It's going into massive outreach efforts, so every single person in Arizona knows who their options are, which leads me to another question that we have. I'm just scrolling up to it. But somebody wrote, I only hear of polls between Kari and Ruben Gallego, where she's down in the polls. Are there any polls with you and Gallego?
There are polls with me and Gallego, and they show me within single digits of Ruben Gallego, and some of them even right there tied with Ruben Gallego. They haven't done a ton with me, which is frustrating. But at the same time, what it's done is they're not dropping bombs on you for the most part either. So what it's done is given us ability to really run our campaign and get out to the people that actually vote. But the polls consistently show, the ones that do include myself in it, show that I have the best chance, not the best chance. We will beat Ruben Gallego in the general election. And it will also help us get President Trump into the victory column here in Arizona as well.
Great. A question that came in. This is a really good one, I think, and one that probably a lot of people sit there as they're watching all the border issues, just kind of scratch their head and ask. And this came from Paul. He said, why is it that good people from the southern border are paying cartel to come through illegally instead of going through the front door legally?
Well, nobody goes through the front door without paying them, even if the ones that are claiming asylum, even the ones using the CBP1 app. Look, the cartels have their hands on everything. Even the ones that come across in Texas, they put little plastic wristbands, like when you would go to Golfland or something. They take those plastic wristbands and put them on the people so that the cartels know they've already paid when they come across. Women, children, men, the whole gambit. So the cartels just don't allow that. That's not, when you show up at the southern border, the cartels know you're there. They're going to make sure that you pay some amount, and you're going to pay. Right now, the going rate's about $5,000 to $6,000 to come across, or it can be as high as $50,000. But it's not uncommon for it to be between $5,000 and $20,000, depending on which country you come from, or whether the cartel has to bring you in as a getaway or try to hide you and keep you from being detected by law enforcement or somebody else. So even the ones that you see claiming asylum, there's been some level of payment to the cartels for that too.
Wow, that's very interesting. And you know, if you ask a politician or aspiring politician that question, their answer is they don't know unless they've read it in an article. You know firsthand, because you're living this every single day. Sheriff Lamb, I know you have
Hey,
an event
real
here.
quick,
Do you have about 5 more minutes that we can
I,
go?
I do. And just on that last question, I was talking to a reporter not too long ago from Tucson, and he says, well, we were talking about the Remain in Mexico program. And he says, well, then the cartel will have their finger on, they'll be able to control these people if you make them stay in Mexico. And I was like, hold on. Do you honestly think that that the cartel's involvement with these people ends when they cross the border? Do you really believe that? I'm going to tell you right now, folks, if you don't know this, the cartel, slavery is probably as prolific or as more prolific than it's ever been in this country. Children are being enslaved in hard labor or in the sex trade. Women are being sex trafficked. Men are being extorted, and they are being enslaved in this country. This is not, it does not end the debt that when you come across the border. Many of these people come in on credit that they owe the cartels. And when they owe the cartels will catch their money one way or the other. And many of them end up in those things that I told you about. Our government has admitted, and this was a year and a half ago, they didn't know where 85,000 of the children, the unaccompanied minors, which by the way, is about 140,000 per year. They didn't know where 85,000 of them. I bet you that number is well over 100,000 now. They don't know where they're at, which means they likely gave them back into the hands of the cartels, and those kids are being trafficked. So if you think for a second that the trafficking of those human beings stops the second they leave Mexico and into our country, you're kidding yourself. We have a real problem in this country. Our moral compass is broken, and it starts by solidifying and protecting our southern border and not allowing this kind of evil behavior to come into our country, and that the cartels will continue to make money. One last thing. What the cartels understand about the commodity of people is that if you have a pill, if the cartel sells you a pill, how many times can they sell it to you? Once. You take the pill and that's it. How many times can they sell you a woman or a child? Hundreds. And the cartels know this. And they make money off of people that they have trafficked into this country every day. Not to be a doom and gloom guy, but I think it's important that people listening today understand, because I think there's actually people out there that think that the second they get into America, it's sunshine and roses and it's Candyland. And it is not. It is a mean and nasty business that does not end the second they come to America. Many of these people it's even worse for them when they get here to this country.
That's some scary stuff. I mean, it really is. And I think the light needs to be shined even brighter on that, because we think about border, close, open, but it's not just about the border. It's what's happening as a result of these so-called open borders, and just the destruction it's causing from, like you said, the drugs to the trafficking and all that. So I know you got to run. I want to try to knock out two more quick questions and one answer follow-up. And then we'll have to do this again. We got so many questions. I just want your commitment for everybody, so they don't worry if they didn't get their questions, that we can do this again.
Next time we'll jump straight into questions so that we can get a ton of questions answered.
Perfect. So a follow-up question to the poll issue where you answered about you and Ruben Gallego. What are the polls saying about Kari against Ruben Gallego?
So one of the polls that was recent was a CBS poll, which showed that she was behind 13 points. And I was behind 7 points. But what there was a whole bunch of independents with ours that were undecided. Well, there was a small number of undecideds with the other two. There's a lot of undecideds, independents, that we're going to be able to capture when we get head to head. And frankly, they've really given me very little media time, and we're still in this race. Look, I've been out fundraised and I've been out mediated by a lot of these medias. They don't want to talk about us, and I'm still doing better. I'm still in this race, and we're going to beat Ruben. So that's one of the most recent polls that I saw.
And I believe they're not giving you that attention because they know you're the only one who can beat Ruben Gallego. Two quick final questions. Where do you stand on early or mail-in voting?
I don't like them. I don't like it. I think it should be show up to the poll on the day of the election. It used to be in Arizona that if you had a health issue and you couldn't make it to the polls, then you could get an early ballot. Or if you were military, there was a reason to have an early ballot. I think anytime you have 3 weeks of early ballots, folks, it just opens us up for a lot of problems. And I think the quickest way to start to gain control of our elections is to give us a day to show up, or maybe open it up for a week to where you can go to the actual recorder's office and you can vote down at the county at the recorder's office. You can cast your vote, or you do it on the day of the election. I'm a big believer that it is not asking too much of an American citizens to show up with their ID and vote on the day of the election. And you know what? Every other country does it that way. We're one of the only countries who allows people to send it out. And frankly, that coincides with when elections started going the other way, is when they started extending out those timeframes for early ballots. So I'd like to see it either removed or at least seriously controlled.
Got it. Thank you for that answer. And we spent a lot of time on the border election. So I want to make the last question one about the economy. Can you share your thoughts on the current economy and inflation and plans to make things better?
Well, one of and look, Trump talks about this all the time, and I would like to say I'm not stealing it from him, but he's right. That we have to get our energy independence back. One thing he says is drill, baby, drill. You have got to get your energy independence. Why does that matter? Because everything that if you make a product, ship a product, or sell a product, it requires energy on all three of those things. And when you have energy prices through the roof and we've lost our energy independence, ultimately that raises the price of goods. Case in point, over the last 3 years, the cost of goods, the average that we've seen it go up is 25%, with an average inflation rate of 20% over the last 3 years. It was 3.4% in 2021. It was 8% in 2022. It was 3.4% in 2023. And we're currently sitting at like 4-point-something% this year in inflation. If you take all that together, it's a cumulative rate of 20%. Now, here's the deal. These people that make these products and ship these products, they're not going to absorb that higher cost. They're going to pass it on to us in the way of higher goods, 25%, or they're going to pass it on to you in the way of inflation. And that is what has happened. One more thing on the economy. If you don't think it's bad, and I got asked this on an interview, they said, wow, I think it's good. Look at all the jobs. Well, first of all, most of those jobs are government jobs. Very few of them are in the manufacturing sector, which means we're becoming a country of consumers. We are, and not producers. But just over the last year, to tell you how much debt this economy is hurting Americans, credit card debt in the last year went from $765 billion to $1.1 trillion. That is an increase of 40% in 1 year. How do you sustain that? That's credit card debt for Americans. That's your indicator of whether the economy is good or bad. Not to mention, mortgage rates are at a 23-year high, and the auto loan delinquencies are at an all-time high. I mean, kids can't buy houses. All of us that are listening today, if we had to repurchase our own homes, we probably couldn't afford to repurchase our own homes. So we got a real problem. It's got to get fixed. And it starts by getting our energy independence back, which will help us get our economy under control, get our cost of the goods that we're consuming back down, get the inflation rate back down. There's a lot we can do. President Trump showed that he can do it before. So we can do this, but we're going to have people that are committed to doing it, committed to being good governors, even though I'm not running for governor, good governors of the people, or good stewards of the people's tax dollars. That's what we need. And that's what I hope to be, running for the U.S. Senate in Arizona, for the people of Arizona and America.
Awesome. I love it. Appreciate that. And the last is just a comment. This isn't a question. It is from James. He said, thank you for helping our veterans. As a life member of the VFW, you have my 100% support. We will support you in your jail to help many individuals suffering from mental illness and substance abuse. With your leadership in helping individuals get into treatment, it is a start to keep our citizens out of jail. Get proper treatment and supportive housing is a step to individuals becoming good Samaritan citizens. As a combat veteran, I'll always have your back. Thank you for your service. We look forward to seeing you continue to lead this beautiful state and our citizens. The more Kari Lake spreads unfounded comments, it's just going to backfire back at her, which is a good example of a candidate without integrity. And that's from James.
Well, thank you, James. And I couldn't agree more. Our veterans deserve to be treated better. It's a shame when we commandeer a hotel in New York, the Roosevelt, or other places, and we take people out and we put illegals that have come into this country illegally instead of taking our homeless veterans or other homeless Americans and putting them in those places. We're taking illegals and putting them in there. And not to mention, we're giving them more money than some of our folks that have paid into Social Security their whole life. So I know that's a whole nother topic. We can save that for another time. But James, I'm with you. We've got to take care of our veterans. We're doing it here in Pinal County. We're going to continue to do it. And I hope to be able to be a champion on a national and federal level for our veterans because they deserve it.
Well, I appreciate your time, Sheriff Lamb, and it's been an honor and truly my pleasure to spend this last hour with you. I know we got to a lot of questions. I'll hold you to doing this again. And ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you've seen enough to make a decision on why you need to support. If you're in Arizona, vote in the primary for Sheriff Mark Lamb, but how you can support him no matter where you're at. And go to the website, sherifflamb.com, sign up. We'll get you some more information. You'll have an email sent to you immediately following this webinar with details on how you can support Sheriff Lamb. And Sheriff, I want to thank you. And of course, your lovely wife, Janelle, because I know she is, she's your support system. She is your better half for sure. And so thank you, Janelle, for all you're doing as well.
She's amazing. And this is a we thing. And I need you guys too. Please join us. And make sure you vote on July 30th. And I hope to come back on because we got a lot of questions we still need to answer. But thank you, everybody, for being on tonight. God bless you guys. And God bless America. This country is worth fighting for. It's the Alamo of freedom. Let's do this.
Thank you, Sheriff Lamb. Have a wonderful evening. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. And we will be talking to you soon. Vote Sheriff Mark Lamb.